The other thing that's covered in this chapter, the other type of reaction, is elimination, which you really already know how to do. Elimination is the removal of acid, a hydrohalic acid, from an alkyl halide to form an alkene. And we already know that you take base and it removes both a hydrogen and a halogen to form the alkene. And of course, the hydrogen has to be from a carbon adjacent to the carbon that has a halogen. And it really makes a lot of sense because the base is removing a hydrohalic acid, and we have already seen that it forms a double bond. So you can already do this probably relatively easily. Bromocyclohexane, when treated with a base, will give you what product? And 3-bromopentane, when treated with a base, will give you what product? Here, you have to figure out the structure of the halogen and then treat it with base to form the product. Okay, this is bromocyclohexane. If we treat it with base, and the bases typically that we use are sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide. Often used is sodium ethoxide or potassium T-butoxide. What is the product? An alkene. And it always has to be that one end of the double bond is wherever the carbon that held the bromine is, and the other end of the double bond is an adjacent carbon. Remember to always make them more substituted alkene. When 3-bromopentane is treated with base, what happens? We get an alkene also. And this is the alkene. These are old reactions. You ought to be able to do these relatively easily. So what are the learning goals that you have now that you've seen substitution and reviewed elimination? You need to be able to, for the basic part of this chapter, is be able to figure out what is the product of nucleophilic displacement on a carbon substrate. And you need to pay attention to charge to make sure that your charge is balanced in the reaction. Then the other thing is to form an alkene. Remember, it always goes to the more substituted alkene when given a carbon substrate and a base, which the second one you already know how to do. The remainder of this chapter is going to be what are the mechanisms of these reactions and what factors control each mechanism, and then how does changing the condition affect the outcome of the reaction, because sometimes we can change conditions and make a reaction go one way or the other. And then how is stereochemistry or regiospecificity affected by the mechanism?